All right. Um, I'm just laughing to myself because it's like I recorded almost 2 hours of what I thought I was gonna upload. Um, at that time, I was kind of under the weather, and I honestly I didn't even know we were that sick. Um, turns out we got hit with something pretty good. Um, everyone in the house was sick. I mean, I didn't post the video, but you could see I was kind of coughing a little bit here and there, and kind of out of breath, and I was going through some shit. So I decided that I was gonna record everything all over again. Multiple reasons. I think that I missed out a lot of um, really good information and a lot of really good stories and some people I might have missed, and I kind of want to redo it. And I don't know. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to certain things. Like even a couple of cars, I ended up parting out just because I found like a little spot of rust that would drive me crazy. Just knowing that it was there. So I don't want to just put out something half-assed. I kind of want to give it a fair shot so that anyone that's giving me their time, I'm kind of giving them back what I think is suitable. I don't want to put out anything kind of shitty. So hopefully this goes a little bit better. I'm gonna do this without editing as well. I kind of want to do it in one shot. It's almost as if I'm talking to someone, and it's as real as it gets. There's no editing involved. I kind of you know, just want to tell you how it is, and be straight with it. So someone, someone also told me that I was too close to the mic, so I moved back a little bit. My face isn't like in the microphone like this anymore. Um, so we'll see how this works out. And yeah, excuse me. Enjoy. I hope I kind of live up to whatever you guys are thinking that this would be, and um, give you all the stories that your heart's desire. And if you like it, and I don't know where this is going to end up. If it's on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll put out more content if you guys are enjoying, like, sitting around listening to me talk about car stuff, the car scene, how it was, how it wasn't, my views, and whatnot. If it's interesting to you, and or if you have another topic, like, I'm a father of two young wicked boys, and if you want some fatherly, advice, then I'm always down to give some. But anyways, all right, let's get into the thick of it. I mean, I listen. I'm almost 40. Um, I don't even like. There's stuff that I forgot about the Toronto car scene that maybe someone else will kind of chime in and be like, "Hey, you missed this," or "You missed that," and I can come back and kind of touch it again, and um, give you some feedback on what you know. Yeah, just basically, if I miss something, let me know, and I'll talk about it, and we'll add it in, and you're more than welcome to come on here. Like, if I figure out a way that we can do it together, then sure, by all means. Like, I was supposed to do it before I left Toronto. I asked a couple guys if they wanted to come down and kind of do this with me. Um, there's 3 or 4 people that kind of didn't really give me like a solid answer. Um, I mean, it's like with anything, right? You're putting your voice on something, and you never know how it's going to turn out, and you leave it up to someone else to do the editing, and they can make you look dumb, and so I think maybe some people were afraid that it also wasn't going to be done professionally. Excuse me, but I had like a whole room. Um, I had a whole room booked, and like a nice little studio, and 2, 3 microphones set up. So it kind of sucks that it didn't work out because I would have loved to have everybody on there and let them give their side of it. But here I am in Calgary, Alberta, doing my own thing, talking about Toronto. So born and raised there, and yeah. Anyways, this political crap with life and living, but I want to get into the whole street racing thing, and not bore you too much with more of my personal stuff. Anyways, so I'm gonna say that for me, it started out as um, just having my cousin. So one of my cousins, a lot of his buddies were car guys. I remember specifically, um, one of them had an SIR at the time, an EBP SIR. Excuse me. That I'm still trying to get over this cough, and it doesn't want to go away. Um, yeah, so he had this EBP, B16 SIR, and man, I love that thing. I thought it was so cool. Another buddy of his had a 5 liter Mustang, and I think one guy had a Subaru, and they were all kind of into cars, and they were a few years older than me, so their prime for car stuff came a lot sooner than mine, and you know, growing up we didn't have a ton of money either, so it wasn't like I could just go out and buy a cool car whenever I felt like it. Um, and then with that being said, my first car was actually given to me. Um, that same cousin had a black DA, a 92 DA GS, I believe. And, you know, he knew how much I love that car, and, how much I was into the car scene. Like, not the car scene, but like how much I was an enthusiast and wanted to learn about cars and everything else. And he said to me, like, when I'm done with this car, like, by all means, feel free to take it. Like, it's yours, like, I promise you that I'll give it to you. So, I always look forward to it, right? I think at the time I was only like 14, 15. I didn't even have my G1 yet. But he said, when I'm done with it, you're more than welcome to take it. So that was exciting for me, to know that, that was that was something that I always looked forward to. So every time I'd open up, like, you know, Super Street or whatever magazine it was that I had, and I opened it, I'd always look for a DA. Be like, oh, because like this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to be able to build and have and everything else, not knowing that, I didn't even have like $2 to rub together. But, you know, it was something that I could look forward to. Um, so I remember, one night we went out, and they were like, "Oh, what are we gonna do tonight?" And one of the guys was like, "Oh, let's go to the races. Like, let's go see if we can see a couple races. Like, I think it'd be cool to get out." And I think at the time my cousin was like, "Well, no, I don't really want to take my cousin because he's 14, 15 years old, and I don't know if I really want to take him out there." But his buddies are like, "No, no, like let's go. All right, it's cool. Like we'll take your sister's like 4 door. Um, I forget what it was. It was like I'm trying to think of that gen, just a 4 door sedan, like the EK body style. Um, they're like, okay, yeah, like let's go. We'll go hunting. So we head down Highway 7, and there was this one parking lot that, you know, even even like I don't even know, like even in the 80s, I think this was like a pretty popular spot, for a lot of guys to meet up there with like Camaros, and muscle cars and stuff. I think it was Texas Pit. I think it was called. I can't remember. Anyways, but it was like an old meetup spot, and people knew about it, so we would go like spot to spot. So there was like, say, four parking lots up and down Highway 7. And we would stop in there and see if there was a big crowd. And if there was a big crowd, we kind of hang out for a bit and, see what cars came in and out. And some nights the crowd would get bigger, and some nights it would go, smaller. And it was like hit and miss because you didn't even know, like, we didn't know, right? Like, we weren't the in people. And, like, we weren't street racers. We weren't in it at all. We didn't have anything worth really bringing out. And besides, they didn't really want to risk anything, like they were happy enough having modified cars, and that was good enough for them. But once in a while they'd go out and see what was happening. So we would go out, and these parking lots would be rammed. Like, I'd say 200-300 people, Like you couldn't even get in. Say, like all the driveways are blocked. You couldn't get in. If you left, you weren't coming back. Like that's how crazy it was, how busy it was. Like this is the peak too. Like I don't know, I can't remember what year it was. I'd be lying to you if I told you what year it was. I think it's around 2000s. Um, you know, 25 years ago, right? Like a lot has happened in 25 years with cars, and just seeing the culture and everything in general has just changed so much. Excuse me. Um, I just had a big bowl of Frosted Flakes. just, I'm just burping all this milk. Oh, it's so bad. But I gotta get this done because it's been eating at me for the past couple of days to finish this and get it uploaded and do it properly and make sure I touch on everything. Um, so yeah, so we'd go and hang out in these parking lots, and eventually, um, you would say to yourself, okay, well, we're in the parking lot, we're here now, we're not leaving, and that would be at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So from 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, you were in there for a while, and roughly around 12, these guys would start heading out. Um, and you didn't really know where you were going. At least this is my side of the story, right? Because I was young, I didn't know where they were going. It was probably a little more organized than what I thought I was, but I don't remember it. You know, I don't remember it like it was, say, like in 2012 or like 2015 or whatever. Because it was that at that point I was kind of more into it, and I kind of knew more of where we were going and whatnot. Anyways, we would just follow this group, and that brings me to like my first kind of story. Um, so because everyone's following everyone, you're basically in a line, like a line formation all the way down Highway 7. So it wasn't very hard for anyone to spot us, to know like what was going on. And nobody really bothered us. Like that was something that it never really dawned on me. Like a few years later, obviously I noticed it more when we were going out, that we would get the spots and cops were already there. Well, back then nobody really followed us. No one really. I'm sure they cared, but it was just like, oh, here goes those street racers again. Let's just let them do their thing, and we'll break it up later or something. So one night we were going down Highway 7. I say down like because at that time we were living in Brampton, or maybe it would be up. I don't know. My directions are terrible. I say down because it was like down that hill, just after, I think it was Martin Grove, by the arena, right? Yeah. Anyways, you know what I mean. Um, and there was an Eclipse or a Talon, one of those, that body style, and this thing was like show quality. Like it had like all the bumpers, it had rims, it was lowered, the paint was brand new. Like this thing was so fresh, and I think we were about 10 to 15, maybe 20 cars behind this guy, and you just like, you heard the brakes screech, and you heard the bang, but it was more of the visual that was like the craziest thing. So it I don't know exactly what happened, but I think somebody rear-ended him and then pushed him into the car in front of him, and because everything was fiberglass, it exploded, and there was it was fiberglass. Like his two bumpers were on the side of Highway 7, like in the middle of Highway 7, like the road. There was fiberglass everywhere. Like it was just chaos. So like he got smucked pretty good, but I couldn't believe it. Like I honestly couldn't believe how much fiberglass and material and just stuff was all over the road. It was insane. I don't know. That guy must have been so pissed because that thing was fresh. Um, and I'm sure if someone's watching this, they're like, oh my god, I remember that. Like I know whose car that was or whatever. Like the car community is so small. Somebody will remember. This was like 2000s. I'm thinking. Anyways, everyone goes around it. We end up making it to the spot, and here we are. Now, when Fast and Furious 1 came out, you need to understand that that wasn't just a movie. Like someone didn't sit down and just like, oh, okay, this is the plot. This is how like it's gonna happen. This is gonna like we're gonna put this here, we're gonna put that there. Like that's reality. Like that stuff was real. Like the amount of cars that you saw in the movie, like that one scene where they block off the road and there's all those cars up and down the strip, like that's legit. Like that's how busy this place was. Like every time we went to a strip, like to a street, to a spot, there was like 2 to 300 cars. Like it was it was peak. Like it's not, like now if you went, you'd probably see like maybe 100 cars. I don't know. I haven't been in a while, but I would say maybe 100 cars. And if that, they were probably like mom and dad's minivans, or you know, like just kids just showing up to show up. But back then, like when I say 2 to 300, I'm like modified, like guys down to boogie. You know, not not like I'm just gonna go sit there and watch. Like these guys, like if you're there, they're there. Like you're gonna get down. So, um, you know, and at that time, it was like single cam turbo, um, B series. Like there was no K. Like there was no such thing as K, right? And I think that was the coolest part, right? Like some like kids these days won't understand that fact, right? They won't understand like, what do you mean you didn't have a K? What do you mean cars were only making like 250 to the wheels or 300? Like that's unheard of. Like I think now some cars come from factory with 300 horse. Like what? You guys are racing 220 horsepower cars? Like what was the point of that? Like it wasn't. It's not about like who had the fastest car. It wasn't really about that. Like it wasn't like, oh, this guy's car is the fastest, oh that guy's car is the fastest or whatever. Like yeah, like yeah, of course you want to be the fastest, but at that time it was like just showing up, having fun, you know, seeing whose car is the fastest. And if you weren't, it didn't matter. You would still go back next weekend. It's not like, oh, my shit wasn't the fastest, so I'm just going to be done. Like, no, you'd go and fix it, make it faster, and come back the next weekend, and then run it back and see what happens. Like, it was just a really, really good time. And, you know, I can't even get into like to describe how awesome it was at that time because so much of it was new, right? Like so much of it was new to us. Guys are at that time doing B20Vs. Um, they started boosting B series. Um, a lot of guys are coming from single cams, and it was all new and all this new stuff and all this new information like coming to the streets. Like guys, started learning about tires and R compounds and like 205s and 225s and cutting up cars and like that was the coolest thing ever, like to live through that, right? Like now it's just now it's given to you. It's spoon fed. You turn on your computer, turn on YouTube, and it's like spoon fed to you. Like, oh, if you want to do this, this, and this, like, here's the recipe for it. Like, there was no recipe for it, you know. Like they were learning stuff from the states, from the guys in the states. They were learning stuff from, you know, there was a bit of Japanese culture at that time, you know, JDM and stuff that was happening there. And I mean, like for JDM culture too, I don't think that they were really um, into street racing and going fast and stuff like that. I think they're more, going to the track and, presenting these really cool builds. And I think it was different than North America, but, we were still learning stuff. And I say we, I shouldn't say we, because there's a lot of people that were in positions before I came up, like Eric, Gino, Mike P. Um, there's guys, paving the way for way younger people, if that makes sense. Um, like Splitfire, Paul, right? Paul was paving the way for drag racing and racing in general in the Toronto area, even before a lot of people were doing it. Go back and watch the Toronto street racing documentary. I'm sure there was people way before me, like way before anything I knew, right? You know, that whole documentary was way before my time. I was still like, maybe 14, 15 years old. And, Mike and those guys were already, paving the way for the next generation of people to come up and do this. There's a lot of history that I'm going to probably miss out on that I can't speak on it because I wasn't around at that time. So all I can do is talk about, when I was there and what I experienced and what I grew up going through, right? Um, but yeah, like, I mean, pause this video, go and watch it on YouTube, Toronto Street Racing documentary. Um, you're going to see guys in there that you're going to recognize. Marco Magnus being one of them. I mean, if you don't know who that is, then maybe look it up. I'm pretty sure he's the one and only owner of Magnus Motorsports. They're huge in racing, right? And if you go back and watch that documentary, I think Marco's like in a shop wearing glasses, just being a mechanic, you know. Again, that's stuff that I can't really talk on because that was before my time. But I recognized Marco from the video, and Mike P. Like I seen him out. I've seen him in his car. I've seen him race. Have I shook his hand? Probably not. But I should respect what he did. Appreciate the fact that he was here and paved the way for a lot of younger guys. Rest his soul. Moving on from that. I'm looking at my screen here and I have like all these things that I kind of want to touch on. And I think one of them is a really, really funny story to me, at least. He'll laugh too if he watches this, and he's like, he knows the story. Um, but I mean, if you're anyone in racing, especially in import world, you know who Eric is. Um, um, he goes by many names. He drove the Murder Civic. He's been Team Splitfire for years. Um, do a little research on him. Solid Portuguese dude. He's he's a solid dude, man. There's a few times where like I'd break something, and he'd be like, "No, let's just go buy it. Like let's go do it now." And I'm like, "No, like Eric, I can't right now. No. We're gonna go. Let's go. Let's get in the truck. Let's go get the part. We're gonna come back. We're gonna fix it. Like let's go. Like we need to get this done. So he's definitely gonna push you, right? And if you screw it up, he'll tell you screwed it up and you're an idiot. But he's solid, and I always laugh because the story never gets old. So another cousin of mine was working at a metal factory, and I guess at the time he was like a supervisor for some of the guys there, and I was working there, and we would talk here and there, and he's like, "Oh, we just hired this new Portuguese guy." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. What's his name? His name's Eric. One day you should introduce yourself." And I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. Like, when I see him around, I'll talk to him." Now, at that time, I didn't have a car. I was living in Brampton, and um, just off Sandalwood in Airport Road. And those some days I'd see another gentleman by the name of Gino. I think he had a black EG at that time. Drive home, and I was like in love with this thing. Like, I don't know what it was, and just because it looked so raw, and I knew it had some work done to it. And every time I would see that EG, I'd be like, "Oh man, I really want an EG. Like, They're so sick. And there was a guy that worked at the scrapyard that one day had a red EG, and he was scrapping it. And I said, "Hey, like, what, like, how much do you want for this thing?" And he's like, "I don't know, like $400 or $500." He's like, oh, I'm like, really? I'm like, $400 or $500? Like, can you drop it at my place? It's like just up the street. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. Give me like $100 for the tow or whatever, and I'll drop it off. So that actually that was my first car. It's not the DA. The red EG was like the first car that I actually had in my name. Did it ever hit the road? No. Did I did I do anything cool to it? No. I like got it home. I put new spark plugs in it and an air filter, and I started just fixing up like the quarters, like a little bit of rust and stuff. And it wasn't really my house, so I couldn't do too much. But I wanted to feel like it's my own, and I had big plans for it, of course, because I thought money grew on trees, and it was easy to just put a B series in, right? So, anyways, I have this red EG sitting at home, and that's all I had. I didn't have anything fast, anything cool. So one day I'm in the lunchroom at work, and Eric's there. So Eric's sitting down eating his lunch, and there was a guy, I don't know, somebody has just started talking about cars and Hondas and like how they're quick or something. I don't know how the conversation happened. So I walk over, and I'm still a young kid. I think I'm like 16, 17, 18 maybe. What do you know at 18? Nothing. You're a kid still. At least, at that time I thought I knew my shit, but I'm like 39 now and look back and I'm like, man, what an idiot I was. So I sat down, and these guys were talking about cars, and I go, oh yeah, like I have a red EG at home. And Eric's ears kind of like, you know what I mean? He like poked up a little bit. And he's like, oh, you have a red EG? He's like, I'm like, yeah. He's like, yo, what's done to it? And I'm like, oh man, like this thing's sick. Like I just got it, but like I'm building a B series for it, and like it's gonna be so fast and da 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 da. And like at that time, I had no idea who Eric was or what he owned or what he drove or anything. And he's like, oh yeah, he's like sick. He's like, okay, what kind of B series? And like at that point there, I'm like just winging it. I'm reading off the top of my head of like the last magazine I read on the shitter like the other day. Like, oh, you know, Brian Crower, like head package, like all this bullshit I'm just making up. Like, I had no idea what I was talking about that time. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, piston and rod, and like, da da da. And he's like, oh yeah, what pistons? And like, I, I'm just, and like he knows I'm making shit up at that time. He's like, this guy's nothing. And um, so whatever. I think I'm like a big shot now. I told this guy like, yeah, this car's gonna make like 300, and I'm gonna get it tuned and blah blah blah. Blah. So after I fill him full of all this bullshit, I walk outside, and I ran into my cousin. And he's like, oh hey, he's like, did you talk to Eric? I was like, yeah yeah, I like finally met him, like cool dude, whatever, right? He's like, hey, did you know that he's got like one of the fastest cars right now? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what car? He's like, oh yeah, man, he's got like this Honda that it's like fully built, and like it's like running these crazy times and blah 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 blah. And I was like, are you serious right now? I'm like, that can't, like my heart like sunk, and I was like, did I just full on like told this guy so much bullshit, and little did I know, you know, of what he had at home and what he was all about. Like it was just crazy, like just stupid, But you're a kid and you wanted to be cool, and whatever. You say stuff to impress people, but you talk shit to the wrong person, and you know, it happens, right? That was like a really, really good lifelong lesson not to talk shit to people that you don't know, because you don't know what they know, right? So, anyways, long story short, I ended up going to Splitfire. At that time, I had my DA. The EG Civic never made it to nothing. I sold it for like $1,000, something like that, to some dude. I was like, oh yeah, it runs great. It's sick. It's just $1,000. Take it. Um, so I had the DA, at that time, and ended up going to split fire, and I think the timing was off or something like that. It was a B18, and I think the timing skipped or something like that. So I go in and I see Paul. I'm like, hey man, can you do the timing on this thing for me? Like I think something's wrong or whatever. He's like, yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah, yeah, just wait here, man. Take care of it. Blah, blah. So while I'm there, Eric walks in. And I was like, hey man, like what's up? He's like, oh hey, what's up? He's like, you work at the metal yard, like we talked, blah blah. I'm like, yo, so like, which one's your car? And he like points to it, and I was like, oh shit, like he wasn't lying. Like his, he really does have a fast car, like legit, you know. So I just felt like such an idiot, and from that day going forward, Eric's always been rock solid. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, just don't talk shit, especially when it comes to cars, like, oh, I have this, this, and this, and no, you don't. Like, just it is what it is, man. You have a D series. Who cares? You have a D series. Like, it's all good. At least you have a car. Some people don't even have cars. People still take transit. Just be humble. But anyways, yeah. So long story short, lesson learned. Um, Going forward from that, um, if I ever needed anything, he was just a phone call away. You know, whether it be parts, help with like a tune, just info too. Like, hey, like, what should I do with this, this, and this, and like right away. Oh, this, and this. Like he's been there, he's done it. You know how many blocks and how many cars and everything else like he's been through. Like that's the other thing I wanted to get to. You know, in order to be fast, you have to go talk to people that are fast. You can't just sit in your garage and say to yourself, oh, okay, well, I saw this guy on YouTube put this block, like this piston and this block with this rod, and like it looked like it looked like it worked on the YouTube video. But like that's like there's so many factors. Like number one, who put that motor together for him? Number two, who tuned that motor for him? Number three, altitude and like what fueling and everything else. Like there's so much shit that comes into play. You can't just go on the internet and look for stuff. Like if you're in Toronto and you want to go fast, you need to go see the fast guys that are in Toronto. If you're in New York, you go and see the fast guys that are fast in New York, like et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? You can't make shit work for other people that to work for you. You got to find what works for you and what's in your area and go with that, right? And I think that's like a huge thing that people waste their money on. Like, oh, I'm gonna do a K2420, and I'm gonna do it this way because I watched a video and the guy did it this way. Well, why don't you just do your own research and just do it the way you want to do it, right? It's your car, it's your shit. Like, just do it the way you want to do it. And if you want to go fast and you want to have like a show car or you want to have whatever, then you find the guys that do that and go and deal with them, right? I would suggest not going to like any mom and pop shop to have this done. Like this is your money, spend it wisely. I've thrown away lots of money doing stupid shit. Like I don't even want to talk about it. Honestly, like racing is not cars in general, not even racing, just cars are not ever going to give you back your money. Not unless you're buying like, you know what I mean? You're like some, you know, 68 whatever, like something like that, and fine, it's an investment, sure, maybe one day you'll get it back. But if you're modifying, especially Hondas, you're modifying and doing all this stuff and changing this, changing that, like it's not gonna it's such a niche market. Very, very niche. Now it's kind of going up. Sure. The price of DC2 type bars and all that stuff is going up, yeah. But at that time, we didn't know. Do you know how many type bars I've parted out? Like it would make your head spin. I think I did like maybe 4 or 5 legit DC2 type R's that I've ripped apart and crushed just because we didn't know, right? They're like, oh, these quarters are rotted and there's a hole in the floor and stuff like that. Oh, okay, let's just scrap it. Let's just scrap the shell. Like we don't want to keep it, right? Imagine that. Imagine if I kept those 4 or 5 Type R shells to just sit there. Somebody would have bought them eventually. Guys are dying to have them right now, but we didn't know. You know, I think at one point in my toolbox, I'm not even lying to you, I had a stack of like this of ownerships, right? You know how many ownerships that is? That's got to be like, I don't know, 30, 40 cars that we would go through. We would like, it was a business. We would scoop them up, bring them to the garage, we'd rip them apart, and I'm telling you now, I swear to you, I could have an EK or EG or like, 90 style B series ripped apart from head to toe, and I'd say 4 or 5 hours. Like, no, I'm not lying to you, I'm not exaggerating. I think I've timed myself that it would be 4 or 5 hours to drop the motor, pull the suspension apart, and have it ready to rock for the tow truck. And it was like a revolving door. I called the tow truck guy. Hey man, you know, sure, say 5 hours with a snack. In 5 hours, I need you to be at my house with your flat deck to pull this shell out because I got another one coming. He would pull that one out, another tow truck would come drop it off. Like, I can get people to vouch for me that that's how quick things were happening, you know? And it fed the streets. It fed a lot of people for a long time the parts that they needed to finish their shit, right? At that time, like, there was a B series on every corner, and part of it was because of what we were doing. It was all legal. Nothing was stolen. We didn't steal cars. We would find, $3,000-$4,000 B swap cars. We'd pull them to the house, rip them apart, and just part it out. And still to this day, I had a guy in Calgary, um, I don't know, maybe a month ago, was like, "Hey man, didn't I buy parts off of you in Toronto? Like for my EK back in the day." I'm like, dude, I have no idea how the hell that happened, but it is a small world, a very small world, especially the Honda community. Um, but yeah, it was a really good time. We made money, we made people happy, um, and it was just a really really good opportunity. And I wish I knew what I knew now then. I would have. There's so many shells we would have kept. There were so many shells that were immaculate, that were like rust free. I had a shell sitting in our garage for, I think, a month. It was a rust free EM1 that nobody wanted. I had it up for $1,000. No one wanted it. Oh, I don't like the color. Oh, I don't like this, and oh, I have to do this, and just wasted my time. And I said, you know what, just crush it, just get rid of it, because I have too many cars coming, and I just want it out of the garage, and we crushed it. Like, and it happened all the time. There was immaculate EGs, like clean EKs. Like, I think so. Two of my builds were cars that were gonna be scrapped. The blue EK and the Champ White um, EK were both basically going to be sold either as a shell, and if nobody bought them, they were going to be crushed because we just didn't have the room for them. You can't. We didn't have a yard. It was like 3 houses of guys that were doing it, and we couldn't just like, we barely had room for the parts. I had parts in the basement. I had parts in the living room. I had parts in the bedroom. Like, it was a disaster, but it kept me busy for sure. Yeah, I think that if I didn't have that outlet, I probably would have spent a lot of money on other shit, other builds, other cars. That definitely kept me busy. Excuse me. But um, let's slow it down for a minute and talk about something else. So I remember, I remember there was the blue EK. So the blue EK came from a gentleman by the name of Ricky. Shout out to Ricky because that car was clean, and it was done well. And I think that if he didn't keep it in the shape that he kept it in, then I wouldn't have done what I did with it. So shout out to Ricky for sure for um, keeping that thing clean and really doing what he did with it, because if he didn't start it, I probably wouldn't have got a hold of it. So I got to be grateful for where that car came from. So I am, because that blue car really, I mean, yeah, the blue car kind of started it all with the Mateo build thing and really getting the ball rolling with, you know, starting to get into car shows and more quality builds, because I was just like kind of throwing stuff together. And I think at that point there, I realized how clean that shell was, and I was like, I got to do it justice and like do something nice to this one. Put a K in it, and you know, do it well. Not half-ass it like the rest of them. But I want to talk about why we do what we do. So this is like a tough topic. So why do we do what we do? Because we don't get any return on it, right? You don't. You're not doing this to make money, right? You're not building race cars to make money. You're not building a show car to make money, right? You're doing it for one, the adrenaline, right? Two, notoriety. So I know people are gonna say, "Oh, I don't build it because I want to become popular. I don't really care about that." It's bullshit. Like, stop. You're not like who are you lying to? You know, you do it for that. Because every time you do something, you're gonna post it to social media, right? Because if we weren't doing it for anyone else, and you're doing it for yourself, then why post it to social media, right? And I kept telling myself that I'm like, oh, I'm posting this because it's gonna be a memory, right? Which it is, right? And I'm happy that I did. But at that time, you're posting because you're like, oh, look how clean I can do this, or look how well I can do it, or you know, it doesn't matter. Everything's been done already. Like, you paint your bay green. I'm just saying green because I like green and I'm wearing green. You paint your bay green. There's probably 1,000 other people that painted their bay green before you, right? What's the point of posting it? You're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna post this and I'm gonna hashtag Green Engine Bay K series because I'm gonna get like all these followers and shit like that, right? Like, so then you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for people to like notice you, right? And it's not until you're 40 years old that you realize like I was doing it because of that, right? Everybody wants to have a piece of something, right? Whether it be, you know, good at hockey, whether it be good at football, whether it being noticed for your shoes or whatever it is, like we all do it. You know what I mean? People post selfies to like think about how weird that is. Like you take a picture of yourself and put it on the internet for people to see. Like why? You know what I mean? So like we all do it. It's fine, whatever. But don't lie to yourself and say, I do it for me because it's not really for you. It's for attention too, right? So I wanted to get into why the car scene can be so toxic sometimes, you know, and it's sad, really. A part of my history with the car scene was probably negative. I have a lot of people that maybe didn't like me because of certain stupid things. Oh, I don't like that car because his car's blue. like, like really? You didn't like me because my car's blue, or because I bought a car that was blue, and it's the same color as like your boy's car that's blue? Like, I didn't paint it. I bought it blue, right? So you want me to go paint it a different color because you're offended because your boy has a blue EK? Like, some of the shit that would come out of people's mouths is just crazy, you know? And that's something I never really understood that aspect of it. Like if I ran into someone, right, with a blue EK, a blue EM1 or a blue hatch or whatever, like I'd be like, "Oh, dude, like oh, it's so sick. Like I had a blue EK and like that's super dope and like what color is that? Like what did it come off of? Like yada yada yada. Like you're a car enthusiast. It shouldn't matter what anyone else's shit looks like. You should just be like happy for them or happy to talk about it. Learn, you know? Like I don't know. That always didn't sit well. maybe back in the day when I was a bit younger and we were on Facebook groups and JDMR and you know Honda Tech and stuff like that, and you would comment something like maybe it got misread and someone thought you were coming off as a dick. Like, oh man, that guy's a dick. Well, why is he a dick? Oh, because he told me that instead of doing B, I should do K. Well, maybe he's not wrong. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe he's trying to tell you something to save you time and money. Why not listen to him? Oh no, he's a dick. Why? Because he told you to do it this way. Like I'll never understand it, And as much as I really want to, and I want to understand where people's heads are at, it just never made sense to me. You know, I never got into building cars because I wanted them to be fast, right? And I think that's a misconception. Like a lot of people, when I was younger, they're like, "Oh, that guy's car's slow. Wow, like it's supercharged and it's only running like a 13 quarter mile." Like, dude, I didn't build the car to go out and run a 12-second pass. I didn't build the car to make any kind of record to do any of that. I built it because I wanted to have a supercharged K swap car. For me, I like the sound. I like the look. I like I liked it at the time when I built it for me. I liked it. I built it, you know. But then I remember like I used to get shit on, like, oh yeah, like man, that guy's car's slow, or that guy's car is like shit, or this guy, or because he went to like this shop, like, oh you go to that shop. Oh no, we don't talk to you because you go to that shop. Like what? You have to understand something. Competition makes you faster, makes you better, right? Why would you run away from that? So like, oh, this guy's car is like making 300 and my car's only making 250. So what? So what? Cut your car up, put a different tire on it, put some weight in the front, change the gearing. Who gives a shit? Don't make an excuse. If you want to be faster, be faster. If you don't want to be faster and you don't give a shit, then just leave it. I never changed anything. Whatever I put into my car, I left it. I didn't change anything. I didn't say to myself, "Oh, I need to change this because I got to be faster." I didn't give a shit. I went out, I ran my car. If I won, if I lost, I don't care. It was adrenaline rush, and at the end of the night, I went home. And then that brings me to my next story. Excuse me. I was getting a little bit excited there. I had to calm myself down. Yeah, I get pretty heated because I don't understand some people's mentality. Even to this day, I'll look back and I'll see like someone's like really old car come up on Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or whatever, and I'll message and I'll be like, "Hey, isn't that so and so's old car?" And they'll be like, "No, no, it's not. It's my car." Like, like getting so defensive. Like, who gives a shit? Like, it's his old car. Like, I don't know, man. Like, if people came up to me and said, "Hey, your blue car, like this guy Ricky used to own it," yeah, man, Ricky used to own this car. Like, it is what it is. That's his whole. This is his old car. Like, why does it matter? You know. Anyways, the point I'm trying to get at is there was a reason why we all did what we did or do, and as a kid, I had pictures of myself at Import Fest, like an actual picture, like not none of this digital crap. I'm saying like an actual on film, excuse me, picture, and I'm standing beside, you know, cars that I didn't, I didn't know. It's hard to explain. So I have a picture of me standing beside a car that, like 20 years later, not 20, but like 10 years later, I ended up knowing who built that car. Does that make sense? Like, what I'm trying to say is that when as I got older, I started to have more respect for these people, right? Because I'm like, so wait, when you built that car, I was a kid taking a picture beside it, and now I'm talking to you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how cool is that? And now I'm asking that guy questions about my car. And that's one of the reasons why I started doing what I was doing. One for my boys, and two because I knew what it felt like to be a kid, right? I knew what it felt like to hear, uh, you know, a Velocity Stack K series going down the street. You know, like if you know that sound, you know how cool that sound is. You know, anything with a V stack on it, it just sounds insane. And when I'm driving my cars, when I was driving my cars, and I would go and I'd like, you know, not rip it, but like I'd open it up a little down the street, and to have kids turn around and be like, oh my God, like what is that? Like that sounds insane. You're sparking a whole nother generation of that, of those kids for that to go through. Does that, you know what I mean? Like it sparked it for me because I remember like when I was a kid, I heard like an Eclipse go by and, you know, heard the turbo and the blow off valve and blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of sparked this whole thing of, for me, was like, oh my God, like listen to this thing. This is crazy. Like I really want to have that one day. You're doing it now too. You're going to spark another generation of kids that are going to see that and be like, wow, this is cool. On the other hand, you could be one of those bananas that are going to takeovers and meets and whatever they're called, slideshows and being dummies. And what kind of example are you leading for those younger generation? Like whoever started that whole slideshow thing, like you're an idiot. I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. Like not only did you make the streets hot for everybody else that wanted to go out and kind of run their car and do a couple passes, like you've now ruined it. Like legit. Like I'm looking at you in your eye like you ruined it. Like do not go to those things because it's stupid, right? In the States, guys are pulling out guns on people. Um, you know, like what? You guys are standing beside a car hoping to get hit because it's gonna make you viral, right? Like, oh, look how close I am to this car that could potentially take my legs off and maybe make me like, put me in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. Like, what? What are you getting out of that? That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, I'm gonna stand here so when this Mustang smacks me and my shoes go flying and I'm laying in my my underwear on the middle. It's just why? Why? Like doesn't make any sense. Grab your boys, grab your whatever you want to go do sliding with, go to an enclosed parking lot somewhere. Go have your fun. We did it. People still do it. There's guys I know with like mini bikes that'll go and go to a small parking lot and just go do what they need to do and get it out of their system and it's done and they'll go home, you know. Instead, you guys decide to take over an entire street, an entire block, shoot fireworks, bring guns, like steal cars, and like what for what? What was the point of that? What is the point of that? Like it just doesn't make any sense. You want an adrenaline rush? Okay, have an adrenaline rush, but you don't need to do that, you know. But anyways, that's a whole nother thing. You know, when we used to go to the street races, we used to run our cars. We went to a secluded street. There was no one around. You knew the risks that you were taking, right? You got hurt. That's on you. You know why you're going there. You know what can potentially happen. That's on you. There's no innocent people around. That's the difference. When you guys are cutting up traffic on the 401, on the 410, on Crowchild or whatever it is, like wherever you are, you're cutting it up. You're putting innocent people in danger, right? Not just yourselves. And I'm not preaching to you. I'm just being real. Because you guys hear it from like, oh, I heard it from an adult, or I heard it from my dad or my mom, this and that, blah, blah. You're hearing it from me. Like, I used to do that shit. I was one of them. I was there. I'm, I'm a huge part, of that community that used to race and do stupid shit on weekends. Leave it to the weekend. Go on the weekend, go to a secluded street. Everyone knows what's happening. Go get it out of your system. Do like 10, 20, 30 passes. I don't care how many you do. Get out of your system and go back to work on Monday. And I think that's what helped me get through it. So at the time I was making 240 horsepower out of an all motor K series. And I would go have fun with it. I would beat the snot out of the car. And when I went back to work on Monday, I would drive like an old man, right? Because I got that shit out of my system. I would never endanger other people, right? Go get it out of your system. Go do your shit. Anyways, enough preaching. So I'll bring it to another good story. Um, I'm not gonna throw out names. I can just go through cars, because in the car scene, sometimes we don't even know people's names. We don't buy their cars. So if I just tell you, like, there's a Smoky EK, right? Like, I'm sure if you really, really wanted to, you could figure out the guy's name, right? I know his name. I'm not gonna air out his name, but it was an EK, and every time he came out, that shit was smoking. Like, it was bad. Excuse me. And every weekend he came out, he ran that car hard, like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like, and it was literally just smoking. It wasn't even like he was on a two step. It wasn't even like he was like redlining, and you would see flames or smoke or whatever happens. He was just idling. He was idling, just driving back, and this thing was smoking like a time bomb. And apparently, that block, it was like found in someone else's car years later, still running. So whatever he had done to that block, that thing lasted forever. So if you're watching this and you know that car, it's pretty cool to see that thing just take a pounding, pause, take a beating, and just last forever. So, anyways, I feel like there's a lot of people that I left out, and I'm not leaving them out because I don't think that they're relevant. You know, I'm leaving them out because I don't think that I need to air out their shit on here. But there was a lot, there was a lot of people that had a part in it. How big of a part in it did they have? I mean, you could say they had a huge part, you could say they had a small part, but they did have a part to it, and everyone was known for something. You know, one weekend it would be this guy, the next weekend would be that guy, and then 3 weeks straight it'd be this guy because his car was running strong and da 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 da. And there was so many that if I sat here and talked about every single person, it's cool to hear my point of view, I guess, to say that you have a spot in my history of it, but I don't I don't want to go too in depth because it gets really, really deep. Um, and at that time when I had my DA, we were doing, we were running on Neptune and Chrome and chipped ECUs. Where buddy would show up to your car. He'd come in your car and open your ECU and put your chip in his, was it like an ostrich? I forget what it was called. I'm gonna get roasted because I'm not calling it the right thing. But yeah, they would just like burn your chip, and Buddy would go in there and you know and put a couple of degrees of timing and put a little more fuel in there, and I don't even know if they knew what they were doing, right? But they did it and they popped it back in, and you're like, oh man, this thing's sick, right? Come on, it probably gave you like what, an extra 3 horse, 4 horse, maybe. But at that time, we were like, oh man, this is sick. Like, Buddy just had the laptop, like we didn't know, unless you were going to like an actual tuner, like a shop, and throwing it on the dyno, and really, it. Like, we didn't even know what the AFRs were. I don't even think at that time. I didn't have an air fuel gauge in my car. Buddy's just like, oh yeah, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna put the tune in, and it's gonna be better. Blah blah blah. I don't think they knew what they were doing, but I never blew up. I broke a lot of shit. I never blew up. Um, I remember one night I was coming home, and we were with a few guys, and I don't know, someone was just toying around with me at a red light, and I typically, like I just said, I typically don't mess around on the street, but you know once or twice is, you know I was young, but now that I look back on it, it's kind of stupid because I was endangering other people. But to yourself, you always tell yourself that, oh, it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, no one's really around, like, It's okay. Like no one's gonna get hurt, whatever. But shit happens. And anyways, so we ended up, we were going, first, second, and then I think I went to go smack third, and I actually sheared the shifter, right, like the handle, like the handle part. Remember, like the old like GSRs were like on B series. I snapped it smooth, right on the bearing, like the ball on the linkage, and I can. What are you gonna do? You can't, you can't put it in first. You can't put it in third. You can't do anything because there's nothing there. So what we did is we opened up like on the older style Hondas, you could just take the armrest and like the center console up, and then you'd have your hole there, and you could kind of like stick your hand in the hole almost. So I ended up getting my buddy to like put his hand like in the hole and like try and pull like for first and second. So we get on the highway, and he manages to like, I don't even know if somehow he managed to get it like in the third, and we just drove third all the way home. I think we were like an hour from home. So it's like, oh man, the stuff that we did. Um, so, anyways, I'm bringing to a more exciting story and something a little more fun. Um, there was a blue coupe. This is kind of closer to, you know, when I was a bit older, and K series was a thing, and everyone had K series, and there was a blue coupe and had a B series, and I'm sure everyone knows who he is. And I think at the time he was a B20V, and his his Habibi brother wanted wanted me to race him. So one day we were sitting there, and I think it was at Princess Auto, and he was like, "Hey man, like your CSX, like what is it making and this and that," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, it's like 230, something like that." And he's like, "Oh, why don't you race my buddy's blue coupe?" He's like, "It's just a B20V. It's like nothing crazy." Now, I already knew about the car. I already knew that it was quick. I already knew I didn't want to run him, right? The thing is like, if you're going out, you're paying attention to what everyone else is running. So every weekend we were out, I already knew who was fast. I already knew whose shit was like locked in, like proper. Like they didn't miss a gear. They're on a tire. Like you just knew. And that was one of the cars that I was like, no, like I already know. My CSX is like bolt on. It's not cut up, full interior. I had a baby seat at the time. Like it is not what people think it is. You know what I mean? This is a CSX. Excuse me. So um I was like, no, it's okay. Like I'm not down. He's like, oh, $100. I should have got a drink before starting this. Sorry. He's like, $100, and I'm like, no, man. I'm not like, no, I'm good. He's like, oh, I'll show you. Like, I'll open the hood. Like, it just has like an intake and a header. It's just a B20V. Like, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, I'm good. All right. So I think later that night we were out, and he was doing a couple passes, and then I did a couple passes, and then somehow we ended up meeting up. So it was like I was next in line, he was next in line, and then we both like met up like side by side. It was gonna happen eventually, you know what I mean? But we just didn't put any money on it. I'm pretty sure he just wanted to make some money. So I don't blame him, like for sure. Like why not? The car's quick. He's gonna win. Let's put some money on it because of course I can win $100 or $200, whatever he wanted. But I knew better, so I lined up beside him, and I never used to do a burnout, right? I didn't care. Like I said, I was just there to have fun. Do a couple passes, go home. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't trying to run it, beat that guy. Like, oh man, this guy's car's quick. Like, I didn't care. I went and I had fun. That was it. But people that were like there to run their cars did burnouts. They want warm up their tires. You're not messing around. You're there for a reason, right? So he pulls up beside me, and my buddy Sean at the time comes up to my car and he's like, "Bro, you got this. Like you got it, man. Like don't worry about it. You got this, right?" And I was like, dude, I'm not stupid. Like, I know that car's quick. I don't know if I had the gear set at the time. Yeah, I don't think he had the gear set at the time, but he did have a built motor for sure. And he's beside me, and all I hear is like, bum, 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 bum. This guy does this huge burnout, like just frying tire. Bum, 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 bum. I'm like, bro, like, I look over and I'm like, dude, I know that car's a rocket. Like, come on, like, you don't need to do that. Like, it's not necessary. Like, my shit is not fast at all, right? So Sean like looks at me. He's like, "Don't worry, bro. Like, you got this. Like, don't let him intimidate you, kind of thing, right?" So it's like, I took off in first, and I think I had like maybe a split second of like first, where I was like maybe a little bit ahead of him, but second, third, I think he clicked fourth just to piss me off, and like he gave me like a bus length, like I already knew, but it was just funny because like if you paid attention, you know who's fast. You didn't need anyone to tell you, oh, this guy's quick, or this guy has this, or this guy has that, because it didn't matter. You just knew that the car was moving. You could see it every weekend. Like, he was racing a V8 car, or he was racing, a turbo car or whatever. Like, you just knew, so you knew the guys to stay away from. The guys that you definitely wanted to stay away from were the guys that would call you out on shit all the time. So one would be like, "Oh, listen, man, you saw my car run last weekend. I lost. I lost like two in a row. Um, but we should run it because, your car and my car will probably be the same, and like you could see how it was moving and blah blah blah. Let's um let's run something for like $500, $400, whatever, right?" And in your head, you're like, "Yeah, you know what? That might be that might be a good race because, you know, his car's pretty close to my car and everything else, and why not, right?" So you lock that in. You still got a weekend or two that goes by where you don't know what that guy's up to, right? And that's the worst. Like, that's the shit you don't want to get into. Where it's like, yeah, okay, let's lock it in. Like, we're gonna race for this much, but that guy still got like 4 or 5 days to do whatever he needs to do to that car. That's when you're gonna get your shit fed to you. Like, I've seen it. I've seen it happen 1,000 times where guys are like, yeah, yeah, we're running next weekend, and that guy will go and put a bottle in his car, put the car on fuel, like get whatever, put weight in the front end, cut it up, like who knows, but he'll do whatever it takes because now he knows that he's gonna make money on it, so he's definitely bringing something, you know, and that was always really 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 fun, that to me, like, that part of racing was always super super fun, and there was quite a few times where we had that back to back to back. Like, a buddy of mine had a Skyline GTS that he brought over from Vancouver, and he came out to Toronto, and I think it was like one of the first, honestly. And when I say that, people are like, "Oh, how do you know?" You know, because I know. I've been around long enough, and I know what cars are out. And I would say that his um, R32 GTS was probably one of the first to really, really be driving around all over Toronto at that time. And I would say that was around, I don't know, because I think it was a 12 or 15-year rule. I'm not 100% sure it was, um, when exactly that was, but I do have footage of it somewhere. And, um, you know, it was not fast by any means. Those RP20s, I tell you, they are not what you think they are. You know, when someone's like, "Oh, Skyline," like, "Oh yeah, Skyline." Whew, man, those things are quick. Yeah, no shit. An R34 maybe, but that RB was that I was like RB20 DED. My Skyline stuff, my Nissan motors are not very good. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a sled, but it wasn't fast, you know. So, anyways, he had this thing here, and we used to drive it everywhere. Or he used to drive it everywhere. I thought it was so cool. You know, first right-hand drive car I've ever been in. You know, turbo noises, and you're a kid, and still really really cool. Um, we ended up going out to we're on Highway 7, and we met some kids, and one of them had a 240 um, with an SR20 in it. So we always thought, this would be a good rivalry. Let's run it. So they would run it, and it was like neck and neck. They'd come back, run it again. One would pull forward. Run it again. The other one would pull forward. Like it was neck and neck all the time. So then we were like, okay, we'll see you next weekend, right? So that week, it would be like a Wednesday. I'd head over to Buddy's house, and he would put in, I think it was S15 turbo. So I think that's what guys were using with the RB20s. They would use an S15 turbo, and they would throw one of those on, and then he had a Pexi Super AFC, I think. And it's been so long, I forget some of this stuff. And he would mess with it a little bit, and we didn't know what we were doing. Honestly, we thought we did. Who knows, right? So the next weekend we go and we run it back, and Buddy Skyline would pull on him. Three runs in a row. Like, okay, well, there you have it. Like the Skyline's faster, right? And Buddy's like, no, like we'll see you next weekend. The next weekend he comes and he's got this big intercooler hanging out the front. Like, what the hell? What just happened? Like, oh, I just got charge pipes. I got an intercooler, boost controller, blah blah blah. So that weekend, the 240 would pull on him, and then my buddy Daniel at the time he's like, oh okay, like we'll go back to the drawing board, and that's what I was saying earlier about competition breeds faster, better stuff. Like a UFC fighter, if someone doesn't beat you down, you're not going to want to push forward and be better, right? It's like racing, so it's the same shit. But yeah, I would see that happen a lot, where it was head to head, head to head, head to head, and every weekend they would up it, whatever it was. They needed to be faster, and it wasn't because they wanted to be faster for them at that time. They just wanted to be faster than that guy, right? They didn't care that there was probably 30 other cars that were faster than you at the time. You just wanted to be faster than him, right? Um, and I remember one night we were going home, and we pulled up beside this RX-7, older body style, um, and this thing was lumpy, like look, 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 like like what the hell's wrong with this thing, right? like, like a buddy of Daniel, and look over at him, man, this thing sounds insane. He's like, yeah. He's like, I don't know what's in that, man, but that thing sounds quick. He's like, should we try? I'm like, sure, man. I got the camera out. I might as well try it. I had like this old HP Hewlett Packard like little digital camera. I, I I took like 4 videos and it would kill the battery. Like that's how crazy that was back in that day. Because it was only used for pictures. So I have like these really really old crappy videos, like some pretty nostalgic races. And anyways, the light turns green and these guys hammer it, and this thing just spins like it's like rah, 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 just spinning and spinning and spinning. But as soon as he caught, he was gone. Like, and I'm pretty sure it was like a swap RX-7 or something like that, or who knows what they were putting in at the time, just V8 something, and it was really cool. Um, I don't know. We're going on like an hour and 15 minutes here. There's so much I need to get into. But I think I'm gonna have to do it in I'm gonna have to do it in like episodes. I mean, this being like episode one of me kind of scratching the surface of, where, how, when, stuff like that. I think the next episode that I want to get into is maybe when K series started to come in, because, you know, that was just something else. you know, it still gives me, goosebumps to this day because, now everyone has a K, right? But back then, y- you know, I don't want to get into it too much because I kind of want to get into it like into a full episode where I can kind of, you know, talk about stuff like K Tune and, excuse me, how they kind of started out and came around and, seeing them rise and, seeing how the first, my first time hearing a K, and people say, oh, can you tell the difference between a B and a K? And it's like, hell yeah, you can definitely tell the difference. If you hear a B series coming down the street, you know it's a B series. You hear a K, you know it's a K. And I think that was one of the coolest moments in my time with street racing was, the first 3 or 4 K series cars to come out, and you were like, oh shit, like damn, because you knew because like the couple weeks before that guy was B series, right? And then all of a sudden he comes back out, and now you hear this sound, and you're like, that's not a B series anymore, and that was a really really cool experience from when guys started going from B to K. I mean, I'm sure going T series to B series was pretty cool too, but the B to K was something real special that I think a lot of people kind of missed out on. We'll get into that another time. Um, if you have something you want to know about, something you want to talk about, something you want me to talk about, I am I am so down. You know, I love talking about it. I like telling you guys what happened, what didn't happen. Um, and I mean, if you hear something, right? If you hear something, and you're like, oh, is this true? Like, did that really happen? By all means, ask away. And if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna reach out to someone that does know the answer, and I'm gonna give you the answer, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you and tell you what happened, what really happened, you know. Or if there's a night that you can think of, there's lots of nights that I can think of. There's nights that I saw a Corvette and a Subaru get T-boned. There's nights where I saw a car split in half. Buddy hit a tree, split the car right in half, and he survived. You know, I, I've seen, I have seen and lived through lots and lots of car things, and if there's something that you want to know about or talk about or discuss, then let me know and we'll talk about it. Um, and if you want me to talk about your shit and what you did, and you know, sure, by all means, let me know. I'll throw it on here. I'll talk about it. I'll give you my point of view of what I think you did or didn't do. Why not? You know. Um, Before I let you go, I do want to give a shout out to Splitfire, like Paul and Andrew. Um, I can't say enough. Like Jackie, you know, um, they always brought me in like I was part of the family. Um, whether it be, you know, stuff that I needed to just kind of vent about, whether it be work related, financial, car related, just a place to go and kind of chill out and get away from shit that was going on. Like their door was always open. Um, I think a lot of people have a huge misconception of shops in general, people that run them. It's a business. Like at the end of the day, it's a business. No one's there to hold your hand. No one's there to be your friend, right? They're to make money. It's a business. Just like I wanted to run a business, you want to run a business, everyone wants to make money, to put food on their table to feed their family, right? Talking shit about someone's business, you're pulling food out of their kids' mouths. The last thing you want to be doing is pulling food out of someone's mouth. So before you go out there and you start talking shit about any shop, I'm not even talking about Splitfire. I'm talking about any shop in general. I'm talking about you go and talk about DMT. You go and talk about um, fucking I don't know, whatever, any shop, any parts supplier, any any race car builder. I don't care who they are. Think about what you're saying, right? Have legitimacy. Don't just go and oh well, I heard this and this. Oh well, I heard that. Oh, don't go there because of this. Like if you don't have experience with that shop, keep your mouth closed. Don't say shit because you don't know. Like legit, I'm looking you in your eye because there's lots of people that go out there and talk a lot of shit about shops that they've never set foot in. They've never been to, never shook the guy's hand, right? You don't know a damn thing about it, but you would go and talk shit and slander their names, right? Don't do that. If you have a personal vendetta with that place, if there's something that happened, by all means, I'll be the first one to help you out and say, hey, you know what? They this they're crooks or they did this or they did that, right? But don't slander anyone's name or their business if you don't even know what you're talking about. It doesn't matter what it was, what time in the morning it was, what time of day, what I needed. All I had to do was make a phone call. Like, I was in some financial shit when I was younger, and and Paul and Andrew and everything else took me and helped me out, right? It doesn't matter what it was. It doesn't matter how much it was. It doesn't matter about anything. But to break bread with someone, to have food with them, to hear stories, to understand, like, you got to respect that, you know. And I don't know how to say it any other way. Until you've sat down and broke bread with someone, don't talk shit. Like, legit, you know. Go and figure your shit out. So yeah, shout out to them. They've always been there for me. Always helped me with anything I needed. I can still call them to this day. I'm in Calgary. I can still call them to this day. Yo, I need this. It's done. You know, and that's loyalty. And there's a lot of that missing in the car scene. A lot of it. And one more person I want to shout out is Luke. Luke from 13. Same thing. Dude, I knew Luke when he was working out of his parents' garage on motorcycles. Like we go years back. And to this day, same thing. I can make a phone call and I can know that he'll do whatever he can do to help me out on that. Like on God. Because of loyalty. Right? That loyalty will go a long way. Don't burn bridges. I'm telling you. Don't burn them. I'm 40 years old. I burned a lot of bridges when I was a kid. And I'll never do it now. Because that shit will come back and haunt you. No matter how far away you live, it'll come back. I met a guy the other day. I, hey, didn't I buy a part off you from Toronto? Thank God it was a good experience, right? I was buying a car off him. That guy could have jammed me, right? Be loyal, be humble, and just be good. Anyways, we'll talk next time. Shout out Splitfire, Paul, Andrew, 13, Luke. Thank you guys for everything. I appreciate it. A lot of my cars wouldn't have been done without you guys. There's a few other people. At the end of the day, there's only a handful of people I would ever let touch my cars, right? I did most I could on my own, but when it came to certain things, like I didn't have a hoist, right? I didn't have a welder. Certain things that I couldn't get done, I'd have other people do it for me, right? And there's only a few people that I would allow to do it. I think one car I had Rui do it. Um, I think Donnie helped me on another car. Um, had Luke, had Paul, had Andrew, and that everyone kind of had their place, and they helped me out a lot, and I'm still grateful to this day. Even if I don't talk to someone, if you help me somewhere along the lines, I'm still repaying that shit back. You call me up, I'm gonna repay it. Loyalty goes a long way. But anyways, I won't preach to you anymore. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're still here, we're an hour and 25 minutes in, and if you're still here, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. This mixer has like these little cool things. I want to just try one because they're really, really corny. I had to. They're there. So. Oh, wait, what's this one? Oh shit. Oh wow. All right, enough of that. I'll see you guys. Okay. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something. If not, next episode, ask some questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. And this is me talking, right? This is me. This is me getting what I went through, what I experienced out to you guys. Your experience or someone else's experience might be different than mine. Their stories might even be cooler than mine. I don't know, but this is me, and I think it's entertaining. So, thank you, thanks guys and girls. Bye bye. Have a good day.